Hello, welcome to episode 31 of the One Life Church podcast, where we talk about things from One Life Church, but ultimately things we think can relate to you and your one and only life. My name is Sarah Inman. I'm one of your co-hosts of the podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by our lead pastor, Bret Nicholson.
Hey, Sarah. I've made it twice in a row. I'm very, very proud of myself. It's amazing. Yeah.
Technically 3 in a row, because the last one was a pre-recorded interview.
It was, so that was kind of cheating, but it did work.
Which was a great interview, though. Yeah, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that.
Last
week's episode, it was really good.
Isn't that terrible? I admit I didn't listen to it.
Well,
but I lived it, so
that's true.
Qualified, yeah.
And today we're going to do something really, really exciting. So we've been talking about different ways of building a great city. And one of our values here at One Life is say we don't want to just build a great church. We want to build a great city, both locally and globally. And one of the ways that we are partnered globally is through Uncharted International. It's one of our partner organizations, and we're partnered with some people who actually just went on a trip. They're all from One Life, who went on a trip to Myanmar. And so we are going to talk to about 4 of them today. We're going to talk to 4 of them today. And it's going to be really fun. So we're going to hear about their experiences, maybe some expectations they had or didn't have or didn't know what to expect. And so today, joining us first, our first 2 guests, we have Natalie Jaranowski, who is the executive director of One Life and also led the trip to Myanmar.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Natalie. That's funny. And then we also have Lexi Will. Lexi, this was your first international trip, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And so let's start with Lexi. Lexi, tell us a little bit, what were your expectations going into going to Myanmar?
Oh, gosh. So my expectations versus reality was completely different. I thought going into this trip, I was going to be bringing the gospel to these people. And it turns out they completely showed Jesus to me and unraveled faith to me in such amazing ways. So, I don't know. It just completely flip-flopped for me. I don't know.
That's awesome. And then, Natalie, for anyone who doesn't know, can you explain where Myanmar is?
Yeah. Myanmar is a country in Southeast Asia. So it's oh man, you're testing my geography skills here. So let's see. It's kind of east of India.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's west of the United States.
If you're not watching,
so
Natalie's
if you have
staring
no idea
at Bret.
where Myanmar is, you still don't know.
It's in Southeast Asia. So, I mean, yeah.
Southeast Asia,
From what I understand, it's
Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, that area.
Absolutely.
If you've ever seen a Vietnam War movie, it does look like that train. That's the reference point I used, is that when you're there in Myanmar, it looks like those movies, complete with the...
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And in those movies, they always look like they're really hot.
Right.
And that they're sweating a lot. Yes, that was totally our experience as well.
Yes.
Right.
You guys went in the summer season, correct?
Yeah, one of their hottest seasons.
Yeah.
So it was 100 degrees almost every day. There was one day where they said it's going to be much cooler today, and it got up to 96.
Right. Yes. But it was a dry heat, right?
That was a dry heat. Yeah.
No problem.
So, Natalie, for you, I mean, this is your 5th time?
This was my 6th time.
6th time, okay.
Yeah.
Tell us, what was your experience like this time, and what was different about this time?
Yeah, so this time we had the opportunity to go to some of our church planters' villages. Uncharted has several children's homes that they sponsor, and then they also have some church planters that are in the country that they work with. And we got to go to 2 of the church planters' villages and work with some kids and some adults there in their village. And what's unique about that is in the children's homes, those kids have regular Bible study and they attend Sunday services, and they're being brought up in a relatively Christian environment there in the children's home. But in the church planters' village, most of the people that were there, some of them had never even heard the name Jesus. The villages where they're planted are 90% Buddhist, or some areas 98% Buddhist. So it was really a unique experience to be able to work with a people group who had never heard the gospel ever before. It was really cool.
And then what was did you get to observe the response? I mean, as you were watching that happen, did you get to see, feedback as far as, okay, you're seeing it presented for the first time? Did they boo? Did they?
No, they didn't boo. So I had a really cool experience. I was sitting with some of the adults because there were children there, and most of the team was working kind of like vacation Bible school type of activities with the kids and some crafts and games. And I was sitting with some of the adults that came and talking to them via a translator because they didn't speak English. But it was a super cool experience because they had never even seen white people before. I was the first white woman they ever spoke to. So
You're it, huh?
That's me.
That's right.
The most white women are a little taller. But, no, it was really neat. But they came because they heard that white people were going to be there, and they'd never seen white people before. So that's the reason that they came. Right. But they were asking a lot of questions about just our culture and how marriages worked, and are they arranged in the United States, and do you have to pay like a bride price or dowry or whatever it's called, you know? Through that conversation, the translator that's one of the leaders that works with us over there, Mark Weaver asked a question. He's one of our elders here at One Life, and he asked the question, are you born Buddhist, or do you choose to be a Buddhist? And that opened up a whole conversation where the Myanmar people that we were with that were Christians were able to share the gospel with these guys who were Buddhist farmers. And while I can't say for sure that they like accepted Christ, but they definitely did not reject it. They were asking questions back and forth, and you could see the wheels turning in their heads. It was just a really, really cool experience to see that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean, could you tell the kinds of questions that were asked, or was that once the conversation kind of got away from you and they weren't always translating? Or
well, the entire time they were speaking in Burmese, right. But they were asking. They were explaining. I don't speak Burmese, but I do know a few words here and there. But they were explaining that Jesus died and he rose again. And when he said that, you could see the guy look at him like he was crazy. And then he was asking some questions about it. And then the guy who was the Christian guy was explaining different things and pointing it out. So it looked to me like there was a little bit of an apologetic going on there where he was like explaining where he could find answers to that. And then he was talking about the Bible. It was really cool.
That's awesome. Like being able, and I know another thing that was done for you this time is you got to bring your daughter with you.
I did.
Yeah. What was that experience like?
Nerve-wracking, you know, going on an international trip, you know, it's different than taking a trip to Walmart or even on vacation. You know, you're leaving the country. And so, I was in the position as a leader, but then also in the position as mom at the same time. So kind of fighting this urge to be like, don't leave your purse there. Zip up your backpack. What are you doing? You know, right. But at the same time, you know, trying to treat her like I would anyone else on the trip. So that was a little unique, but super cool to see it through her eyes. We have sponsored a little girl over there since she was 6 years old, and her name is Priscilla, and she lives at Harmon, which is one of the children's homes over there. And the reason we chose Priscilla is because she's the same age as my daughter Mia, who went on the trip with me. And these two girls have written letters back and forth to each other for years. And I've gone, this was my 6th time in Myanmar. All the other times I've gone, Priscilla has asked me, when is Mia coming? And every time I've gone, Mia has asked me, when do I get to go and meet Priscilla? And they've written letters back and forth, and they've both been pestering me about seeing each other and meeting each other. And they got to meet for the first time, and it was just absolutely beautiful. It was like seeing two sisters meet each other for the first time.
Oh, that's crazy.
And they were inseparable. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
That was cool to see. Mia was so excited.
Yeah. And Mia brought one of those. Have you seen these best friend necklaces that magnet together and make a heart? And then they're two separate necklaces.
I haven't, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well,
I think I had a couple of those.
You're a dude. Every middle school girl knows what these necklaces are. So your best friend keeps half, and then you keep half. Well, Mia brought one of those necklaces, and Priscilla's now wearing half of the best friend necklace in Myanmar, and Mia's wearing half of the necklace here.
That's cool. So. That's really cool.
Yeah, and one of our it's kind of a little illustration of we haven't said this as much as we should, but one of our goals with Uncharted originally was that we called it a one-to-one relationship with the least reached countries of the world. So it wouldn't be just kind of going and dropping off or sending money. It would be literal relationships are developed with people in these countries, and that's just one other example of a very just that being lived out. It's very exciting.
Lexi, I have to ask you. So, what made you want to go to Myanmar?
Oh, I've been wanting to go for a while, like just on a mission trip for a while. And then I actually told Natalie this, but I remember one day Peter was in town. Peter is from Love Children's Home. He started it in Myanmar. I'm sure everyone's heard about him. But he was here one day in the States, and he came to our church and started talking to us about like going on a mission trip to see him and why the reasons why we should and what we would kind of experience. And Natalie got up one time and spoke about it too. And I was like, I think I want to go to Myanmar. So then I heard about the spring trip, and I was like, I think I'm going to do it because I have the money to go now and I can do it. So yeah.
Just went for it.
I did. And I drug a friend along with me, Hamilton.
Now, you said you went and you had one expectation, and I forget the verbiage you used, but it was basically it
bringing the gospel to them.
Yeah. And it kind of turned it inside out or something like that. So what do you mean by that? Kind of flesh that out a little bit. Like,
we hear about third world countries and how we keep hearing that it's 90% Buddhists or whatever there. So I had this idea in my head that they had never heard about God or anything. And, all these children's, like, they're orphans. They might not have the background. I was born into this religion, Christianity. They might not have that privilege. So I just assumed that a lot of the kids hadn't even heard about it. But then you get there. The first thing we did was go to church on Sunday with the kids at Love Children Home and all the leaders. And the way they worship, the way they pray, like they completely showed Jesus to us because they are so awesome. I don't know.
So you're just kind of watching them worship. You're standing there.
Yeah. Well, we were doing it too, but I was like in awe, like looking around, like what's going on? Because these kids, like it's ages from like 3 up, and they're just like screaming, like praising God with their hands lifted high. It's like I go to church here sometimes, and you see like 10 people raise their hands, like every single kid was. It's true.
Man, I thought we had more than that. I always sit in the front row, so I never peek. I don't know.
Yeah,
so
I know.
I'm assuming there's just a sea of hands
I moved to front row when I got
10.
back from the trip. I was like, here we go. But I was like that too before the trip. You get so egotistical in a sense to where it's like, I don't know who's watching me praising God right now. I don't want to let my guard down. But it's like, why? Why do we feel that way?
Right. That's a good question.
But,
But that changed in you. So by the time you came back, that was one of the impacts that it had on you.
For sure.
Yeah. Good deal.
That's cool.
So what were some of the things that, are you going to say now?
I was just going to say that I had that experience my first time in Myanmar too, that I think it is the most genuine worship I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
These everything from 3-year-olds to adults shouting out in worship and praise and so authentic. It just makes you weep.
Yeah. Literally, I had tears in my eyes. It's awesome.
So what were some of the things that you guys, I know you mentioned one thing that you guys said, kind of an interaction you guys got to have, but what were some of the typical day-to-day things? If someone's going on a trip to Myanmar, what would they be doing?
We had 4 teams there. There was a Bible teaching team, the silly songs team, arts and crafts, and the sports team. And so we kind of do like a vacation Bible school type of thing where we go. We did that at the church planters, and then we do that at some of the children's homes as well. And we rotate the kids through like you would with a traditional vacation Bible school. And we just do fun activities and love on the kids and hopefully teach them a little bit about the Bible while we're there. And it's just a great opportunity to be able to build relationships with them. So we did that with the church planters. We did it at the children's homes. And then we take a day when we go to the Shwedagon Pagoda and we prayer walk that. Now, the Shwedagon Pagoda is the largest Buddhist temple in the world.
Oh, wow.
And I think there's 800,000 steps leading up to it. It felt like
a million.
At least a million. Yeah, when it's 100 degrees outside and you're walking up those steps, it feels like a million. But it's a really cool experience because you actually get immersed in the culture there, and you get a really good understanding of, you get a better understanding of the Buddhist faith. And some of the leaders went along with us. And as we walked around, they were explaining to us what was going on because there were people bowing down in front of some of these statues and worshiping them. And then they pour water over the statues. It's a form of worship that they do. They leave food there. They burn incense, and they have different statues and Buddhist gods that represent different days of the week. So it was really informative to understand. It's a part of their culture there. And then we prayer walked as we went around there as well. So,
Yeah.
What was the team's reaction to that? Whenever did you guys debrief and you came back? Were there themes that some were freaked out, or were some just kind of encouraged, interested? I mean, was there?
I think all of the above. Really,
Right.
I think all of that. I mean, I would pitch that to Lexi because I've been there 6 different times. What was your reaction?
For me, my best friend Hamilton was on the trip, so we roomed together. So we would always talk about the end of the day, like what we liked and stuff. But for us, we just did not like that day. We felt really weird. Just, I don't know. I feel like at the temple, I felt like I was in a comic strip. Like they were all worshiping like different statues and idols. It was confusing to me, and I don't know, it was weird. We said we left the temple with like such an empty feeling, whereas when we left the children's homes, we left so fulfilled and so like happy. So it was just completely different. But yeah.
It's a really interesting perspective. And that was one question I wanted to ask you coming back home. And you talked about that a little bit, like moving up to the front was something you said about church. But just going back to everyday life, what's different? What's something you're bringing with you? What's something you're telling people about your experience?
I didn't want to come home because it is hard going to a country like that and experiencing like these kids having nothing. They don't have anything, but they have hope in the Lord. So then you come back to America and you definitely see people having hope in objects way more than the Lord. So it's frustrating seeing that like people that I work with like don't believe in God and stuff. And it's like, how can you not? So I don't know. It was frustrating, but Ben, I talked to him while I was on the trip and I was like, how should I bring what I've learned here back to the U.S.? And he's like, you just have to be gracious and patient with people because that's all they've known in America. Like they won't understand like what you're trying to tell them. And he was like, people are probably going to tune out when they ask you about your trip. After you say it's amazing, they're done listening. And that's so true. Like people have asked me like, how's your trip? And I'm like, life-changing. And they're like, all right, cool, next subject. And I'm like, no, I'm not done. There's more.
Yeah, there's a reason why it was life-changing.
Yeah, I don't know. I completely feel changed. So if I can't change anyone else, at least I'm completely changed for the Lord. So
and when you say changed, like how would you describe what you are in your post-Myanmar world as you walk through your days? What's different about you?
Completely giving everything up to the Lord. I was holding so much back before the trip that I didn't realize. And now I feel like I feel so confident in giving him everything, praising him more. I would pray like once a day, maybe. Now it's like I try and pray like 3 times a day. I have to get that devotional in the morning. Like it's important. I don't know. My perspective on religion has changed a lot. Like God is so good.
Yeah.
And it's,
Oh, that is amazing. You think you'll go back?
Oh yeah. I'm already planning my trip back.
Yeah, she already told me that I have to lead the next trip, and the exact same people have to go again.
Oh, is that where? Okay.
Yeah,
the December trip. Here we come.
That's right. Good.
And then just before we swap out to some other guests, Natalie, I know that there's a lot of things that were in preparation for you leading up to this trip. And a lot of that, we got to kind of experience here as a staff, trying to see what was going on there. But once you finally got there, what was that like? I mean, with this group, I'm sure everyone's a little different. Every group, I'm sure, is a little different. Every team you've been on has been a little bit different. What was this experience like?
This was a really unique group because we have a family of 5, a family of 7, but they brought 3 of their kids with them. So 5 of them were on the trip.
Wow.
So it was really cool being able to see it through their eyes and their kids' eyes. Because I think 2 10-year-olds and a 14-year-old, right? Yeah. So that was really cool to be able to see how the kids, a 10-year-old is going to experience it differently than a 14-year-old, differently than a 22-year-old or a 40-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. So there was a variety of ages on the trip, and there was some married couples that were there. There were some single people that were there. Mark was there. And Mark has been 5 times before
I didn't realize
as
that.
well.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So being able to experience it through people's eyes who had never been there before or who had been there before, and then were able to take what God had done in their lives, like what you've talked about, Lexi, and then be able to help other people experience the same thing. It was just kind of a beautiful picture for me of the kingdom of God working all together. I watched the adults on the trip pour into the kids, not just the kids that were living over in Myanmar, but the kids that were on the trip. They really kind of became the team kids. We were all looking out for them. It was almost like 5 years of a relationship happened within 9 days.
That's so true.
Yeah. It really is. We're like a big family now, right? Yeah.
That's why you want to go back with the same people.
I have Jacob's garage code. I'm going to come hang out with his family whenever I feel lonely.
I know. My kids are asking, when can Lexi come over and hang out
there
again?
you go.
So,
That's right.
yeah.
And you could
pretty
give out that
well-liked.
code right here. That's it. Just kind of broadcast it out. And Lexi, just imagine you were someone, you were this way not very long ago. You've never been. What would you say to someone who's like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Gosh. So I've actually, a lot of my friends don't really, they believe in God, I think, but they don't act on it. So that's funny you say that, because I came back, obviously, and told them everything that I learned. And 3 of them have been like, oh, I kind of want to go to church with you now. Just because, like, I've talked about how, like, these kids pour into Jesus so much, and, like, they overflow with his presence, and it's, I don't know. I feel like they get such a positive vibe from it, so it makes them want to go on a trip like that to experience that, first of all. But then it also made me happy how they're wanting to go to church with me now. Like, that's awesome. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So,
I don't know if I answered that question exactly.
Yeah, close. I mean, it was in the neighborhood. It was okay. It was just like what would you say to someone who's kind of on the fence thinking, should I go? Should I not? Why would you?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest issue is money all the time. You hear that lump like $3,000 and it sounds like so much, but if I could do it again, I would pay the full amount 10 times again if I would, because it's worth it, every penny.
Well, there you go.
And you get sponsors if you need it. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, people would hear that all by itself, and they would probably think, okay, I may go. Even if it's hard to come up with the money, it's worth coming up with the money because of the life impact.
Definitely.
Terrific. Thank you guys so much for sharing just a few of your experiences. I know you guys have a lot more, and I would suggest anyone who's listening who's a one-lifer, come and find you guys and ask you guys some of your experiences. I know you'd love to share more than that, but we're going to bring on 2 more people from the trip and hear from their experiences as well.
All right. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to continue on with our conversation with 2 more people from the trip who just recently went to Myanmar. And I have Jacob Limbach and Jason McCord joining us on the podcast today. Jason, if you guys don't know, is our technical arts director and also the campus director of our West Campus right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, I am.
Yeah.
Glad to be here, though.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. And Jacob, let me ask first. Was this your first international trip?
First international mission trip, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that experience for you compared to, we asked Lexi kind of the same question, your expectation, what was that like compared to maybe what really happened?
Yeah. We took, it was me and my wife and our 3 daughters.
Okay.
So we didn't have a lot of expectations going into the trip. We felt like, for whatever reason, we should go. Our kids were very interested in it. I think more for the travel than anything. They had never been on a plane before. But we, coming out of the trip, we were just kind of blown away by the experience, by the Myanmar culture, by the church leaders, really our team. We were definitely, whatever we thought we were doing or going there to do, we were fulfilled 10 times more. It was pretty amazing.
And how old were your kids that went with you?
10, 11, and 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like with the same thing, talking with Natalie, having your kids with you compared to just being somewhere by yourself. What was that? Like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, I think we were on guard, I think, initially. And then almost the first day when we landed at Love, we were completely overwhelmed by 400 kids.
Yeah.
And the way,
400.
yeah, and the way that they, my daughters reacted to them, and they reacted to us, kind of put us at ease for the rest of the trip. And then just watching my daughters be able to experience another culture and how they worship. I think Natalie talked earlier about how the Myanmar children and just Myanmar people in general worship God, was pretty amazing to witness. Definitely different than what we do. We're a lot more, I think, reserved and maybe worried about what other people think. Theirs was a genuine worship that was very humbling to experience. They were very open, and it was just really neat to see.
Did you notice that your kids, like now that you're stateside and you're back home, and I don't know, it's been a couple of weeks. I mean, has there been much retained from that, or has life gone back to normal, or have you noticed any shift in their attitudes or behaviors or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think they cry at worship every week. Still, I do too. So,
do you for real? And
yeah.
You didn't before?
No,
didn't before. Now you do.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good.
It just, I think by going through a trip and experiencing their culture, it just, I guess, touches us at a different level. Right. I think as a family, we're completely open to God's calling for our lives, and whatever that entails. And I think we're just open and ready to be directed by Him. Right. And then our worship, we really want to be open to Him and give Him the glory of, I think, everything that we have. We have a lot in America, and I think the kids see that, and we see that as well.
Yeah.
Jason, kind of same question. I mean, I know I've heard some of these stories personally, and some of the stories of things that I definitely want you to share. As soon as you walked off the bus and kind of walked in, you had a friend. Tell us about that.
Yeah. It's I've kind of told that story a lot. Just what it was like to get to Love Children's Home, and that was our first experience with the kids. And I keep telling people, it was like, I don't even think my second foot hit the dust. And this little girl, Laura, had my hand. And from there on out, I think she adopted me. And she would tell other kids, like, I don't know what she was telling them, but I felt like she was like, go get a fan and make sure his shoes are, like, she was telling people what to do to make sure that I was taken care of. And it was just like, who is this little girl? You know, like, what is she? But yeah, it was amazing. She was there all, she wasn't at Love Children's Home every time we went there, but we went to Love Children's Home too. And she was there the second to last day. And then I saw her the last day too. So 3 days out of that whole week, just seeing her was fun. And I got to see her dance with a little group of girls that she had with her and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing.
Probably made it kind of hard to leave, didn't it? That's rough.
Yeah, it's real rough. It's real rough. I mean, I have nieces and nephews here, and they call me Jungle Jim Jason. But over there, like, it was like I had 10 or 12 kids, and they were all hanging on me or holding on to me.
So
and
they were calling you that too.
I think they were in some way.
And Burmese.
I told people I felt like this huge ape just sitting there, and all these little monkeys all over the top of me and stuff, and hanging off my arms and stuff.
It looked a lot like that.
Yeah, that's right. So it's an appropriate
Sure
name.
it did.
Yeah. It's amazing. So what about you on the expectations? We had kind of, you had your own thoughts about what it was going to be. Was it the same kind of thing? I went over there expecting one thing and came back the other.
We did meet a couple times before we went over there as a team, and we talked about how there's going to be a culture shock, and how there's going to the traveling and some of the logistics of the trip. But I didn't do a lot of study up on Myanmar itself and what kind of history it's gone through and everything. But I could see myself getting on the plane. I could see myself getting off into another airport. I could see myself getting on another plane yet again. But then there was this white fog in front of me where I didn't know what to expect when I stepped off that plane. And it was, I just felt like they wanted to take care of us no matter what was going on with their idea of what was happening in their culture right at that moment. We were their focus. They wanted to take care of us and make sure that we had everything we needed.
Now, everybody says, though, that I went over there to give, and then they all come back and say, well, that's not what happened. It was like I received. And that was the same with you? It was the same kind of...
Yeah, I went over there. I went over there part of the Bible study group or Bible verse to share with them stories from the Bible. And I had to share with them the Good Samaritan, which took on a new meaning for me because these kids knew exactly what a Good Samaritan was. They were doing it daily for us. I mean, by grabbing us water whenever we looked hot or fanning us when we were just sitting around, talking with other kids. So they were living that out daily. And then I taught Abraham and Isaac and the sacrifice. And it was just like these kids.
For the kids there.
Yeah. And it's like, man,
kind of heavy subject matter.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you get,
right.
but and then the very last day was really cool for me because I taught on the Tower of Babel. And I thought it was fitting because neither me or the kids knew what the other one was saying. Yeah, we were all walking, and we could all relate to it in that degree. So, but with that, it kind of made me see in the perspective of when God came down and scattered us, and changed our languages, how it made us all very much unique and different, and how beautiful their culture is, and how beautiful that the way they show love is. Because they wanted to hold your hand constantly. And something as simple as holding hands here, I mean, I've heard parents say, I just wanted to get them away from me. Their own kids, like, they're always hanging on me and stuff. But it's like these kids just want to hold a hand just so they know that they're there. Right. And so the Bible verses and the Bible stories that we taught took on totally new meaning for me when I was there to give it to them, We
need to have you teach that at some point. Yeah. I'd like to hear that lesson on the Tower of Babel.
I would love to. It was fun. I had a great time with it.
I'll keep that in mind.
I think, Jason, you were talking about, sometimes we treat our own kids like, hey, give us a break.
Yeah.
But what was amazing there was, and it made me check myself, I went into the trip kind of, wanting my kids to experience, everything that they could out of the trip. And instead, God really used the trip to tell me, hey, like, you need to refocus on me. And you need to refocus on where you're at. And if you lead, like you should be leading, then your kids will know me. But those kids, I mean, we play all day, 12 hours a day. It felt like 12 hours, maybe not 12 hours, but it felt like a long time. I know by 6 o'clock I was ready for bed.
The heat makes you feel that way. Yeah. It makes you feel
100 degrees.
But we never got like, they didn't fight. They didn't argue. They didn't, we didn't, they listened. I mean, without a language, it made it really simple. Like all we did was play. All we did was spend time with them, quality time. And I think that kind of spoke to me and changed my perspective on my own kids. And, when I get home from work, do I really not have the energy to play with them, play with my kids? Do I really not have the energy to spend time with them, quality, good time? So that's kind of changed in our house the last couple of weeks for sure.
That's awesome.
It's a really good perspective. I mean, there's a lot of teaching happening here just from you guys, from your experiences. I guess I would ask too. So obviously that's one thing that's come back to your family and your household. What's something that maybe you've brought back and you're like, you can't wait to tell people about maybe that are asking about the trip that you're excited to share with them?
A lot about what they said earlier. I think a lot of people will ask us how the trip went, and probably tune us out after that. But if we can maybe just share with them just how much has changed our personal lives and my kids' personal lives. That's the one thing that I'm trying to get across to everybody. If you're thinking about going on a mission trip, or you're thinking about stepping outside your comfort zone, take that step, you'll be blown away by what God is doing in other parts of the world, not just Evansville or Newburgh or Henderson, but in Myanmar and all over the world.
Yeah, I've said probably too many times that the thing that blows me away about going to places like that, you always have to remember CNN or Fox, none of the news channels are going to tell you what God is doing around the world. They're not going to let you in on that. And so you think of him as not active, but when you travel around, you get blown away by, oh, wait a minute, he really is alive here, more so than I've seen in my own life. I have a question and you've kind of answered it, but I want to hit it from another angle. I'm going to kind of throw a heavier one at you guys because I don't know if you may be aware of this, you may not, but there is a debate in the Christian world, especially in the West, of whether or not people should even do mission trips like this. Because why wouldn't you take the money that you use to travel and use to take the team over there and to send that to them? Wouldn't that benefit them more? And there's books written about that. There's whole schools of thought. I've always personally been of the opinion that it's the opposite, but I'd like to hear you speak to that. What would you say? Why didn't you just send the money? What do you need to go for? Why do we need to send teams on mission trips? What's the impact? Why does it matter? Is that cheating? And did I? But since you've come back, and what would you say to somebody that said that?
It would almost be an easy answer to say for the experience, but I think more so it's for the relationship that you'll find between people who really truly don't have anything, right, or don't have the same quality of life, I guess I would say. I mean, they still have to heavily filter their water, and even then it's not as clean as it would be here in America. Right. Things like that are pretty easy to throw out there, but to me, I feel like sometimes now that I've been back, I guess, I feel like God is definitely speaking more over there, and people are listening over there more than they are here in America. Because it's easy it almost seems like it's easy to punch your card and go to church Sunday and then, right, but when you go over there and you have, because for me being over there, I truly did come to the realization of what surrendering to God really meant. Just surrendering it all, giving it all over to him. I know Lexi kind of had mentioned that to her experience, but I never really understood that. And I grew up Catholic and I was in the United Church of Christ for a while. And then when I came to One Life, I felt like it was home, but then going on this mission trip and really seeing people interacting with God as though he's standing right there, right next to them, it was mind blowing at first, but then it was almost like I completely understand that he is right here in this place. And I'm not saying he's not in church in America, but I just feel like most people,
it's a good thing you work at one.
Yeah, I know, right? But I just feel like most people here don't feel that relationship with him, right, like they do over there.
It seems like you both have said a lot. I think everyone has said a little bit. There's this idea of there's less distractions. I mean, there's things that you're not thinking about, or you're not. Yeah. The only thing in front of you are either these kids or the people you're teaching or the people you're connecting with. That seems to be a barrier that kind of just gets out of the way, and you're able to just focus on what Bret said earlier, relationship. So it's cool.
Mm-hmm. To go back to Bret's question, do we think like if mission trips are important, or we want teams to go, or should they go, or should we just send money over there and not experience?
Yeah, because it's a criticized thing. I don't know if you knew that or not. But
I don't think if you want to experience God truly and fully, you can't rely on going to church every Sunday. You have to see it in other cultures. And the farther I think you go, probably the more amazing he is. But the other cultures have it. I mean, Myanmar was absolutely amazing. How they worshiped, how they prayed, how they loved one another. We saw the church planters, their whole lives, their one priority was to save lost people and to save as many people as they could by telling them about Jesus. That was their one priority in life. Like mine's work, food, family. You know, I have a million things to do and to think about that distract me. Their one thing was primary focus was Jesus and reaching lost people in their village. That was amazing to me. Like, I don't think you can get that perspective by sending money. Right. And I don't think you can experience God by not going.
There's a disconnect there, I think, when you just send the money.
Now, yeah, but on that side, do we bring anything to the party when we go? I mean, because everybody, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's talked about what I received. Did we give anything? I'm not being a smart aleck. I'm just saying, like, you know, you went over, had this great experience, and you know, do the people in Myanmar get anything out of you going? I don't know how to word it, but I mean, I'm just wondering, do we bring anything in the party?
I feel like they...
Do we need to cut
Would they
here?
all be
So
sitting
what's
around
going
doing a
on?
podcast going, man, when those Americans come over, it's amazing. It's a...
I think just,
go ahead.
I think, at least with the children, you know, by us spending time with them, they got to do stuff that they normally wouldn't do. They got to have treats that they normally wouldn't have, you know, and we gave them that. I think with the church planners, we prayed over every single church planner and leader, and I think we probably encouraged them and hopefully gave them, you know, some energy to keep going and keep fighting, because hopefully by us being there and praying over them and listening to their stories, they felt like what they were doing was globally impactful, because it is. It was very neat.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it is that global impact, because something that Mark Weaver, who went with us, had said early on, because I think it was Monday and Tuesday, we already knew the impact was huge on us. And we were like, how do we explain this to people? How do we pull it out of us and put it in people? And I think the best thing he said was just tell a story, whichever one that works best for you. Just tell it, because it'll work differently on every one you tell. Right. And I think that's huge, because when we go over there, and yeah, like we said, we got a lot more. But I think showing them that we're Christians too, even though they don't get to travel over to America, we're willing to come here and share what we all know, and that's Jesus is the light of Christ, you know, light of Christ itself, you know, and that love, it surpasses borders. And I think that's what we kind of share with them when we go over there. But when we come back, it's almost like we can give that to so many other people, just sharing these little stories that we have with the people in Myanmar.
Yeah, you do get to demonstrate there's a larger impact. I had the opportunity in Afghanistan to the first time I was over there, I just was able to walk up to a believer, and there aren't a lot of them, and really felt prompted just to tell him, listen, I traveled from all the way to the other side of the world just to let you know that God does see what you're doing, and that you are making an impact. And he just melted. I mean, it was just, so a lot of it was that, and that global, when we get that, it's the global impact, God doing work around the world, and us showing that as a part of the nations, they need to see that as well, even though it seems like they're closer to God and everything, that larger perspective, because they get discouraged just like we would, and everything else. So,
and I know you guys physically take supplies over. I mean, you have like suitcases that you're only allowed to put your stuff in a certain part. So, I mean, there is an impact there. I know.
Do we still do that? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was, I knew that was the pattern in days gone by, but yeah.
So I know that's one thing, but two, what you guys have both said in different ways, what I keep hearing is that encouraging the church planners and encouraging the kids, letting them know that the people that are writing to them, Mia meeting, what was her? Priscilla. I mean, them actually knowing that those are real people that are connecting with them, that's impact. That's a relationship. That's something that absolutely you're bringing with you when you take over there, or when you go over there. I haven't been, but that's what I'm hearing. So thought I'd share that. But one thing that I'm kind of thinking as we close up a little bit, as I'm hearing a couple things, one question keeps popping into my mind. Do you feel like maybe some of these fears maybe you have personally in faith kind of just, I don't know, not that they go away, but maybe they kind of soften a little bit when you see, as you said a couple times, Jacob, like that you see faith being acted out in a different country, that it's not just something that happens here, that it's happening, you know, literally on the other side of the world as well, that those fears of like, God really is in control of all these things.
Yeah. And I think the biggest, one of the biggest fears I think people have is to talk about their faith openly. And after, you witness those church planners and it's not, they talk about their faith every day. It's not that big a deal, right? God's bigger than your fear, just like we talked about on Sunday. He's there. He's got you. Nothing's going to happen to you. You live in America. Like the worst that's going to happen is they might, discredit you a little bit, but that's all right, because your priorities are what's important. So, it's prompted this trip. I don't think like this trip on the way home, my girls were asking, all right, who can I ask to church on Easter? They would have probably never even had the guts to ask that before they went on the trip. So they're just, hopefully a little bit, I don't know, at ease to share their faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Jacob said. I mean, it breaks down walls definitely, and you feel a lot more confidence, a lot more comfortability there to talk to other people about their faith, because you see these people that have real struggles outside of just asking someone to church. I mean, they're moving in big ways, and you're like, all I got to do is ask someone to church. I can totally do that.
Yeah.
It's a good perspective to keep in mind. That's good. Very helpful.
And then just closing out, what's something you would tell someone who's kind of maybe thinking about going on a trip, not really sure if they should? What would you guys tell them?
I would say if you're even if it's even grazing your mind here, go ahead and start asking the right questions to the people that are, like uncharted people here at One Life. Just start asking questions on how you can get on a trip, because until you ask those questions, you're going to just keep saying, maybe.
Yeah. And I would challenge you to, whatever the reason is that you're saying no, put that in front of God and see what happens.
Yeah.
Cause we had a lot of reasons to say no to this trip. We had 5 people that we had to, that were thinking
that's a really
about
big no.
That was an
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big, chunk of change to go on this trip.
Just be right out there and be honest about that. Yeah.
So, but we gave it to God, and our trip was 100% funded. That was just on
crazy.
faith.
That's that's so amazing. Yeah.
It was amazing. It was a miracle. Like we literally got all of that in a matter of 60 days, I think.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So, and then it was, just another reason after another reason, and he showed up. So, put that reason, whatever it is, to say no, put it in front of him, and I bet he'll make it a yes.
Yeah. And I will continue to say it. I've said it many times. I believe every single Christian person should do that at least once in their life. If they get a cross-cultural missions in some way, it didn't have to be Myanmar, but there's something about it that it just does something you just can't get anywhere else. And I think it's the combination of everything from travel to teams to new culture to new food. I mean, everything. The whole experience is something that God does a special work in that you just can't get any other way. And that's why Jesus said, go to reach the nations. So go for it if you're thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Sarah.
Listen to I know. All right. I'm working on
That's
it.
Right.
There's things. Yeah. So we do have a trip that will be coming up in November to Belgrade. And I know that, Bret, were you on that last?
Yes, I was. Yeah. I did the exploratory trip.
Yeah. So anything that you can say about that trip?
I would say, first of all, that each trip, and one of the things that Uncharted is doing is we're trying to give different kinds of trips for different kinds of people, for lack of a better way of saying it. And it's not like Myanmar. It is Belgrade. It's European. It's a very different kind of experience, but it'll still have the same effect, just in a different way. You won't see many orphans praising God with all their hearts. You'll see a place that is even post-Christian more than some, and educated people who doubt God and all that sort of stuff. However, I guarantee it will have the same effect for those of you who should be or can be praying over it and be thinking about it. So it definitely will open eyes. My son went, and he was majorly impacted. He's one of the only 19-year-olds I know that really has a heart for Serbia. You don't find a lot of that, but he's got it, and it did it to him. So.
That's awesome. And we'll have more information coming about that soon. It is November of this year. Be heading to Serbia. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences and some of it, just a few. I know you guys have a lot more. And again, I would tell people as well to find you guys out and ask some more questions about your trip and your experience and how they can learn more. And we would love to be connecting people with that. So you can email us here at the podcast at podcast@onelifechurch.org if you're interested in Serbia or interested in finding out more about their experiences from Myanmar. We'd love to connect you with them as well. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the One Life Church podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and subscribe. That way you'll get an alert anytime there's a new episode. If there was something that you heard that you really want other people to know, share it out on social media. You can use the hashtag OLPodcast. To ask us a question here at the podcast, you can email us at podcast@onelifechurch.org. I'm one of your co-hosts, Sarah Inman, and I produced this episode. Our music is produced by Micah Robertson and Ben Brock.